We are building underground vertical farms and capsule hotels beneath city streets. Our goal is to provide a safety net for those suffering from poverty and homelessness. Stick around for more information.
What is the role of government? Not just the American government, I mean all government. Why did humanity organize itself into socioeconomic systems? I need you to think about this fundamentally because there has been a steady rise in the global cost of living. Homelessness in America has trended upward since 2016. Over 100 food processing plants have been closed or destroyed within the last 2 years, and over 10 million illegal migrants have crossed into America since the last election. Many of them military-aged men from China, Russia, and the Middle East. California and New York have deliberately sabotaged their own economies, leading to a diaspora of millions from the very places most ideal for foreign occupation. Russia and China are running psychological operations against our politicians, social media influencers, and independent news media. People like Destiny, Tim Pool, and those of the Daily Wire. Syngenta Group, a European Union and Chinese state-owned agrochemical company, have long-standing contracts with American farmers to spray brain and endocrine-disrupting chemicals into our food supply. Chemicals directly linked to issues of gender identity, homosexuality, and symptoms of ADHD. And finally, Biden is seemingly sparing no expense on starting World War III with Russia through Iran and Ukraine. This isn't conspiracy theory any longer. The world's elite have openly declared war on the U.S. by financing its destruction, and America's adversaries have been incentivized to participate.
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to, but in a crisis, you see, we have no chance.
The narrative of the World Economic Forum is that the global economy must be transformed from a capitalist shareholder model to a socialist stakeholder model, where no one owns anything, diversity and inclusion are enforceable, environmental threats are punishable, and all technological innovation is controlled by a small group of political and economic leaders at the top to ensure minimal damage to the environment and to maximize equity among stakeholders. To achieve this objective, however, they're trying to replicate the Maoist cultural revolution that led to the deaths of over 20 million people in China. They're impoverishing countries within the United Nations on purpose, before they collapse the U.S. petrodollar to bring about civil unrest and mass genocide. They are using the principles of scarcity and terror management theory to force people into different cultural groups and fight for resources. That's why they're not prosecuting criminals. We cannot let this happen, especially when there is far more viable solutions to poverty, equity, and environmental sustainability. Most nations stockpile guns, nuclear, and biological weapons. Though we have done similarly with our nukes and firearms, our most powerful weapon was never a tool of war. It has been and will always be our shared cultural values of individual freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness transcend both time and national borders. Everyone on the face of the planet yearns for the rights we have as citizens, and everyone wishes they could organize at a moment's notice when those rights are being taken away. There is a reason protesters in other nations fly our flag on their streets, so it is in this respect. I say we work together with these migrants to wage our own economic war against our shared oppressors. These will be the tools of our warfare. This is a vertical garden by a business called Bowery Farm. This particular garden produces 80,000 pounds of produce every week. That's an automated vertical farm that produces 476 pounds of food every hour. They're not even using the space or power efficiently. When combined with aquaculture, this vertical farm can produce a never-ending supply of fish, fruits, vegetables, crustaceans, and spices. We can even raise chickens with no impact on the environment. Now look at these. These are inexpensive living quarters that are grouped together within dorm rooms to create shared living spaces. Loneliness is an epidemic in America. This could be the solution. For those with family, there are compact family living quarters as well. Both of these are inexpensive to build and highly sustainable. They could end homelessness and poverty on a global scale if implemented correctly. Next on our list is a photoacoustic imaging machine. It uses a non-invasive combination of infrared lasers and ultrasound to map out the entire human anatomy. With your investment, we will build a high-fidelity full-body scanner that can detect diseases at the cellular level before they become life-threatening. Checkups would last no longer than 10 minutes, and your vital statistics would let you know when you need to see a doctor. Finally, this is a drill created by Robert M. Potter. It utilizes superheated steam to fracture rock in a matter of seconds. This particular application is for geothermal drilling, but we have improved upon the design. When built correctly, the drills never need to be replaced, and when mounted in series, they can excavate several miles of rock in a matter of weeks. In the coming months, we're planning to release a mount for pickup and utility vehicles. If you own land, you will be able to carve out your own bunker with minimal risk of cave-in. There are several additional tools we're omitting for patenting purposes, but this should get the ball rolling. Our plan is simple and it comes in two parts. The first part of our plan is to use these tools to build vertical farms, capsule hotels, and clinics beneath the streets of suburban cities and towns. Our focus is primarily in areas with significant levels of poverty. The idea is that by placing this infrastructure beneath residential areas, food is produced locally and is managed by the people that live there. It also provides the public with a safety net should the economy lead to a rise in homelessness and unemployment. The second part of this plan is to convert abandoned mines and caves into fully self-contained underground cities. These subterranean communities would initially have the purpose of providing free studio apartments for those that are homeless or in poverty. However, with the inherent constraints on space and cost of maintenance, we would empower each community with the tools and machines necessary to expand the underground communities they live in. The resources mined and processed during this expansion would then be used in the first part of this plan. So what's important here is that it's a closed-loop system, where each community supports each other's efforts and other cities like it. The best part is, because this infrastructure is entirely underground, the impact on our environment is net zero. The globalists have convinced many people that the Great Reset is about environmental sustainability, that CO2 levels are too high and our survival as a species hinges on their ability to manage our lives. With this practice of building underground infrastructure, we undermine that entire argument. 12 strategic locations of interest have been selected for the construction of underground cities. These are, in no particular order: Alabama, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Arkansas, Arizona, Maine, Nevada, New Mexico, and South Dakota, and finally, Texas, Alaska, and Wyoming. Alabama, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia were chosen for their abundance of iron, aluminum, and salt, quintessential minerals in the creation of rebar and automated vertical farming systems. Arkansas was chosen for its minerals of limestone, gypsum, salt, and clay, major components in the manufacture of biopolymer cement and media for aquaponics. Texas was chosen for its silica deposits, as well as being a major hub for immigration, both legal and illegal. The other states were chosen because there is enough gold, silver, copper, and lithium there to pay off all of America's debt 11 times over. Most importantly, however, each and every one of these locations, save for one, shows up on a Feeding America map for people suffering from food insecurity. Remember, this isn't necessarily about mining resources, but the propagation of food sovereignty and subterranean living. By building this infrastructure underground, we give direct control of our nation's food supply to the people that consume it. We also cut down on CO2 emissions from trucking and free up millions of acres in farmland that has been used to poison the public with endocrine-disrupting chemicals since the 1980s. Humanity lives in the troposphere of this planet, and with its propagation, forests are cut down and replaced with farms or architectural marvels. If humanity builds their cities beneath the surface of Earth, however, then the forests that grow above them will ensure CO2 levels never become life-threatening. This probably doesn't mean a whole lot to most people with a mindset of economic survival, but to those that unwittingly supported the agenda of the World Economic Forum and stayed silent when they talked about a global socialist utopia where innovation is stifled and everyone is oppressed, this is a much, much better solution to climate change.
Hello, I'm the founder of Sentient. We're a charitable organization with foundations in science, astral travel, and the Holy Bible. Sentient originally served the purpose of unifying all Abrahamic religions through historical research, science, and astral exploration. However, in 2008, I felt a calling towards permanently ending poverty, homelessness, and starvation through the promotion of economic sovereignty. Although initially I was excited to be given this word from the Lord, I failed to act on it immediately. I didn't feel worthy to take up this task given to me. For much of my life, I suffered from gender identity disorder and symptoms of ADHD. Neurological problems I only recently attributed to exposure to brain and endocrine disrupting chemicals in the womb. Before I knew of these chemicals, however, I felt as if I were stuck in iniquity, and worse still, the guilt prevented me from acting. Satan is the so-called accuser of the brethren, is he not? Now I know the truth, and though my life is rife with traumas, guilt, and suicide attempts, I've learned to trust the Lord with my grace and salvation. I need you to remember this. It's important later on in this video. Right, so we need two things to begin this project. First and foremost, we need a minimum of $4.7 million. With this amount, it will enable us to purchase the excavation equipment, the materials for the vertical farms, the land to store our tools, and a whole host of other resources. It will also enable us to set up multiple sources of income, hire staff, legal representation, engineers, and social media managers. There's a lot of veterans who are suffering, but I personally feel this work would be the most rewarding for them. The second requirement involves a coordinated effort from individuals for whom the state of the economy poses an existential threat. To be candid, the best way to finance each location is either to work with local government or set up special tax districts. These funds would not be used to pay us, but would go directly into the hands of the locals who are helping us build and maintain the subterranean infrastructure. Believe it or not, our current political environment makes private mining projects very difficult. The EPA has passed a number of laws that are directly responsible for the economic pains many Americans are going through today. By organizing the entire population of a city or town, however, projects will get done a lot faster and people will be held more accountable towards each other, including local government. There's also the added benefit of creating jobs, which means the wealth generated from these local government projects will be much more evenly distributed amongst the population that lives there, versus in the hands of a few investors who aren't invested in the people these projects are meant to benefit.
Now, in the beginning of this video, we asked you, what is the purpose of government? Have you figured it out yet? It's sovereignty. It's the safeguarding of sovereignty. Food sovereignty, water sovereignty, housing sovereignty, medical sovereignty, communication sovereignty, educational sovereignty, economic sovereignty. We're not talking about pay-to-play either. We're talking about true sovereignty. When a nation cannot provide the very basic for its citizens, it harms its own military and weakens itself to corruption. And a corrupt government is not a government at all. It is an anathema. There is a tribe in southern Africa called the San. The people there are largely uneducated and primitive, foraging and hunting for food, water, and other basic necessities for their survival. Most importantly, however, they share their resources freely amongst the tribe and there is no corruption amongst leaders. The San people lead a life of leisure and freedom, and they've existed for over 140,000 years. Now, with all our extensive knowledge and technological advancements in automation, what does that say about the United Nations? What does that say about America? The fact that you think and feel emotions independently dictates that you should be able to act and learn independently, whether it is in your best interests or not. What that also means is that the prime directive of every law passed by a government should be the enhancement of education and the promotion of individual freedom for all of its citizens. That is, so long as it does not impede the freedom, education, or health of others. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that there were over 16 million people working in the healthcare industry in 2020. Each of them went to work to support their families and maintain the lifestyle their education afforded them. With the release of the coronavirus, however, their ability to sustain their family and lifestyle was placed in jeopardy. The hospitals that had employed them forbid them from talking about ivermectin. Because of this lack of sovereignty, it led to the deaths of over 7 million people. Imagine what would have happened if all 14 million doctors and nurses retreated underground in protest. So let's summarize what will take place upon successful funding of this project. Number 1, we begin hiring social media experts. This may sound superfluous, but public transparency and participation are paramount for this project. The social media experts have the responsibility of broadcasting every aspect of this movement towards sovereignty, from contract development and negotiations to excavation and installation of infrastructure. If a transaction or contract does not take place on camera before millions of people, it isn't legitimate, and all parties involved are held financially responsible. Once facilities have been set up, they will also have the responsibility of giving an unbiased report of public health, economic activity, and educational standards from a third-party auditor. 2. We begin hiring staff in the form of legal teams, engineers, and foremen. These legal teams will help develop contracts with various local governments and homeowners who live within a city or town. The engineers will ensure structural integrity and safety of all projects at each location. The foreman will ensure proper OSHA standards are met and that everyone's properly trained. Number 3. We purchase land in either Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, or Montana. This property will serve as a manufacturing facility for our steam excavation equipment, as well as the creation of our mobile smelting and fabrication tools. There is a lot of plastic and metal waste in America, and with the right tools, we can transform those inexpensive materials into parts for automated vertical farms. 4. We hire drivers with commercial driver licenses and send out convoys to cities and towns that have signed up to transform their communities into sovereign cities. There is more nuance to this, but you understand. Once operations get moving at a comfortable pace, we will set up operations in other countries. It is our hope to free as much people from hunger, homelessness, and economic oppression as possible.
All right, listen to me. This is very important. This crowdfunding campaign, it's not a proposal, it's a warning and a solution. If you ignore this project or others like it, there's a high probability of death or loss of liberties. The Great Reset, it's not about climate change or equity. It's about being able to manufacture enough implantable RFID tags for their new central bank digital currency. The current population of Earth is 8 billion, with an annual growth of 80 million. Manufacturing the mark of the beast to meet this exponential growth is a near impossibility. The computing power alone to track, trace, and database the entire world's population, their location, behavior, spending patterns, etc., it's impossible. Only the mass murder of billions of people will make this new system they want feasible. The environmental restrictions on farming in Europe. You think that's about the environment? That's nothing more than a ruse to lower the amount of food produced by the end of the year. The threats of invading Russia by NATO leaders. You think that's about preventing Russian aggression? They're trying to lower the population. The gain-of-function research on viruses. You think that's about safety? That's nothing more than a form of insurance for these elites. The mass immigration of undocumented migrants. You think this is a humanitarian effort? You know it isn't. It's nothing more than a catalyst for civil unrest once they successfully manage the collapse of the dollar. They're counting on the principles of terror management theory and scarcity to force everyone to fight against each other. Then they will use the conflict as a catalyst for the forced injection of RFID implants. The globalist bankers attempted to release this technology in 2008, marketing the device as a way to access health records, find missing people, and ease transactions in the market. However, Aaron Russo learned about its true purpose of controlling the public in his talks with Nicholas Rockefeller. Because of this information and the strong presence of conservative and anti-establishment liberals, the public saw this technology for what it was and rejected it. Do you know what their response to this was? They funded and promoted cultural conflict between conservatives and liberals. Remember The Amazing Atheist? YouTube promoted content like his because it served to discredit conservative beliefs and create animosity between both political groups. The Big Bang Theory, documentaries with Richard Dawkins, all of it. It all served the same purpose. What they failed to do, however, was convince anti-establishment liberals to support the globalist agenda. Remember, this was around the time of Occupy Wall Street protest. Most liberals who supported socialism or communism in America were not socialist or communist at all. They simply identified a large socioeconomic system of oppression they disliked and wanted to make it more egalitarian. Because of this sentiment, however, this nature to adopt a counterculture, they could be manipulated but not trusted to carry out the will of the bankers. Which brings us to where we are now. China's not preparing for war with Taiwan. They never were. China's preparing for war with the United States, and the bankers, in conjunction with MI6 and Mossad agents, are directing their actions. BRICS is of globalist design, and China is being set up to be the new enforcement arm of the globalist banking family, specifically the extended Rothschild family, if you believe the conspiracy theories. The theft of our intellectual property. You think that's a Chinese initiative? It's not. It's the globalists transferring their investments into China. The bankers are using BlackRock and other investment firms to gain an economic monopoly over all publicly traded corporations. Because of their significant investment into virtually all publicly traded institutions, they're forcing these corporations to hire Chinese spies through their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. The collapse of our mainstream media. You think this is simply the decline of legacy media? It's not. The push for woke ideology, the blatant lying, it's all by design. Fox, CNN, and other news agencies are being used to cast a negative light on America. In the past, legacy media was used to pacify both Americans and the global community to protect their investments and systems of control. Now they're deliberately stoking the flames of cultural conflict by lowering the amount and quality of media coming out of the United States. The underage political orgies at Epstein Island. You think this was just a bunch of rich people flaunting their wealth? No, it was not. That was a joint honeypot operation carried out by the CIA and Mossad, utilizing an advanced form of mind control technology. I have a list of the patent numbers right here. Those politicians and cultural leaders were not only coerced, but forced to sleep with underage children to keep them quiet during the Great Reset. Even members of the elite banking empire personally oversaw the operation. The undocumented military-aged men from China, you think they are civilians or spies? No, they're not. They're soldiers. Many of them were sent to Maryland and live there to this very day. Just west of Washington, D.C., Howard County alone saw a 6% growth in the Asian population in the 2020 census. Currently, over 20% of the population in Maryland is made up of foreign-born Asian immigrants. 5% of them come directly from China. Make no mistake, the collapses of those bridges were pawns being moved off the board to cut off an escape route for our politicians. Currently, there are efforts to influence Congress into passing a bill to allow undocumented immigrants into our military. If that happens, the most powerful military in the world will be China's military. You need to support our efforts for socioeconomic sovereignty. When you do, every undocumented migrant and every soldier hiding among them will become as poison in their homeland. Remember where these people are coming from, the level of oppression these people have fled from. Yes, even the soldiers. Those corrupt socioeconomic systems only survive because the people think there's no other option. If we show them a better way, one of liberty, freedom, and overabundance, where food, water, and shelter is free, then they will become our soldiers. They will push for a way of life that their own country denies them. Then those countries will collapse under their own weight of tyranny. Make no mistake, no one has achieved victory by going to war against heaven, and no one ever will. In addition, because our efforts have a net positive on the environment, it will disprove the globalist narrative that the Great Reset is for environmental sustainability. It will force the elite to reveal their true motives for financing the destruction of our food supply and the destabilization of the United Nations. Then the pyramid of power they erected to oppress us will collapse beneath their feet. Look, even if you think this is all conspiracy, you still have to support this project. AI is here. Automation is here. Robotics have already been proven to be more efficient than human labor, and the layoffs are already happening. Homelessness is growing, and the business elite will never support universal basic income. It's very simple. They want you dead or controlled. By supporting this effort, we remove the leverage these corporations have on human life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you. Oh right, I almost forgot. This message is for all elected local, state, and federal officials. The American people believe that corruption is prevalent in our government. The very fact that lobbyist is a job title in America is proof enough that there's a so-called swamp. Though we of Sanction are certain that not all of you are corrupt, identifying which elected officials are is difficult. It's much safer to assume that all of you are on the take. Therefore, for every mine or cave we, the American people, convert to underground cities, you and your administration will receive 20% of all resources that are mined from there. An additional 20% will go towards paying the national debt. The other 50% will go into the pockets of the people who live and work in these underground communities. The last 10% will go into expanding our efforts globally. This is whether or not you accept bribes, no questions or accusations levied. If you've been compromised or blackmailed into submission, use the information I gave you to investigate the areas where you are corrupted. The smart grid alone is worthy of investigation. Don't let the Pharisees of Israel or this nation condemn you or the lives of over 100 million Americans and migrants. Understand the concepts of terror management theory and learn to overcome your feelings of guilt or inadequacy by turning to the Lord Jesus Christ. I was serious about precious metals in Middle America. Do the job we elected you for and stop being manipulated by lobbyists and foreign intelligence agents. Repent and return to serving the interest of the public again. We will defend you when the time comes.